Hello, everyone. Today, on this episode of the show, I'm going to be doing something that's very kind of new and unique. Have you ever heard the phrase, Africa is a country? And sometimes, and many times, it's used with racist undertones. But in our industry, I'm going to look at three different countries, three different leaderships, three different projects, and the same type of thinking.
Sitting over 20 miles east of the current capital in Cairo, Egypt is building a new administrative capital from the ground up. The nearly $58 billion plan includes a miles long Central Park, a main business district with a Chinese built tower, and massive new headquarters for the Egyptian Ministry of Defense, known as the Octagon. But some say
It's a city for 6 million people, and I don't think there are 6 million people that can actually afford this city.
after borrowing tens of billions of dollars, Egypt is facing an economic crisis.
So, this is the first country, Egypt, a 58 billion, nearly 60 billion project that they cannot afford. They are trying to build this new city, this new shiny thing syndrome, and it's for 6 million people that cannot be afforded by those people. Hmm, where have I heard that playbook before? That sounds oddly familiar. The cost of a plot of land is dependent on its size and location in Eko Atlantic. Land is sold per square meter, and plot sizes in phase 1 and phase 2 start from approximately 2,200 square meters. That's the least you can buy. And prices per square meters within this phase starts from $1,150 per square meter. In phase 3, land within this phase starts from approximately 1,200 square meters. That's the least you can buy, mainly for low-rise residential houses where the land prices are at $1,050 per square meter. There is no maximum capping on the amount of land that can be purchased. Each plot of land can be used for a residential or commercial development or a mix of both, as Eko Atlantic is designed to be a mixed-use city. It is important to bear in mind that plots in phases 1 and 2 have been created to accommodate mid to high-rise buildings, and in phase 3, some plots have been created to accommodate single residential dwellings and low-rise developments. Land in the Marina district can go as high as $30,000 per square meter. So, we're coming from Egypt, where critics are saying, and rightfully so, that people cannot afford the land and a government is borrowing for a project that is largely a gentrification project. Then you come to Nigeria and then you see that the base of the thinking for the new city, we're going to go back to the Egypt video. Many people think it is political, but in Atlantic, the case of Eco Atlantic, not really political because of the surge of the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. But if you're building this sort of new city that people cannot afford, um, what is the plan? Are you just building it to increase the divide and the poor and the rich? Because when you do these things all over the world, what is the impact of infrastructure on the people, on the life of the people that live there? Not just an urban, shiny project that is good on your books, but people are still literally living in poverty. People are still living in come from Makoko, where there is the capital of poverty in Lagos, and then you go into the Eko Atlantic and the Victoria Island. And so we are seeing this similar trend. There's a third country, but before we go to the third country, let's continue to look at this Egypt issue because it is a very big topic with activists and a lot of people. And in fact, recently they are plans for them to IPO to raise about 15 to 10% equity for the same project. But we are now seeing that African leaders are mostly prioritizing shiny things and shiny new projects and shiny new cities and infrastructure over the actual success and prosperity of the people.
Here's what this new desert city reveals about Egypt's plans for the future and the debt it's racking up to get there. The central goal behind this administrative capital is shifting the government's power away from here, the country's current capital, where ancient buildings are crumbling, traffic is congested, and residents are densely packed.
95% of the population, which is over 100 million, live in this very narrow valley.
Within that area, there's a significant wealth gap, and in turn, a history of revolt against the government. In 2011, protests erupted in Cairo's Tahrir Square. A revolution soon followed that led to the downfall of Egypt's then president. And its current one, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, is a former general who came to power in a military coup 2 years later. Sisi officially announced the project in 2015 under the objective that this will decongest Cairo and produce new working opportunities.
هيكون عندنا 1.7 مليون فرصة عمل دائمة، هيكون عندنا أكبر حديقة على مستوى العالم.
But political analysts say
going to the desert allows him to create this distance between him and the urban centers so that in case there is a revolt somewhere, he can repress it without it being effective in blocking him.
You know, the truth of the matter is that when you are a student of history, you realize that the more things change, the more they remain the same. And actually, most programs and most modules that talk about urban planning, you'd see how people would use public interest and political rhetoric to say a particular thing in public, and there's an underlying political and economic system behind. Just like a pizza, you have the base all the way to the toppings. And the toppings is what people see, is what politicians say. But when you go down to the base, you see what they really are trying to do. And honestly and truly, does Egypt need 60 billion for a new city? Could funds be put to better use and to reach the end goal? And politicians will always justify. This guy justified it and said, oh, there's congestion, which there is. There's sprawl, there's an urban center, whatever. This is to create a new city. And it seems like I've heard that before. Like, I mean, even recently, people are saying, oh, in the midst of inflation, in the midst of unemployment, in the midst of FX, what we need is a coastal road. A coastal road will just make every single thing good. And the government wants to spend 15 trillion on a coastal road in the poverty capital of the world. And they are justifying it with good reason. Let's see the justification.
Vice President Eko Atlantic doesn't quite understand the figures. And I know you have a file here. I imagine the figures are here. Quite a number of questions he has asked regarding the cost, the way it was approved. Did you align with the Procurement Act and the rest? But speak to us. There are concerns that this project may be some compensation to some people, and that much has been put out there. So speak to us about the procurement process. Did this follow due process? You had said that FEC gave approval for it, right? And then you had also said that, well, it's in the budget. So speak to us. Was due process followed?
Well, I don't understand what you mean by due process. Yes, due process was followed. People were concerned about whether it was appropriated for, and I say yes. If you go to 2024 appropriation, you will find, Lagos Calabar Coastal Road is there and it's appropriated for.
What cost is there?
I may not know, but let me explain something to you. In appropriation and procurement, what is...
This guy actually came on national TV, said he may not know the cost of a project he's directly overseeing. All right, let's go ahead.
In the appropriation may not necessarily be what is in the procurement. But the most important thing is that it's appropriated for, and it followed due process. And what's the due process? The due process is that we did our in-house evaluation of what is submitted. And some people say that this project is PPP. It's not PPP. It's EPC plus F, which is engineering, procurement, construction, and plus finance. And What people do not know is that in EPC plus F, there is a commitment in terms of funds, from the federal government. It depends on the negotiation. Like we have Abuja to Makodi, is done by China Harbour, and the federal government is paying 50%, equity. And we have also Makodi to Nine Mine in Enugu State. The federal government is paying 15% equity. This one, we are still negotiating between 15 and 30%. And so what the federal government is doing is that they are injecting their own equity, by saying, okay, we fund this section. We may not necessarily give you money as we are doing Abuja, Kaduna, Abuja, Makodi, but we'll say, I did it in my state, when I had 199 kilometer of road, to do, and I had to put in 20%. Instead of giving the 20%.
Now let's actually look at what this whole coastal road is about, and is this what the country, like basically dire need of the country as at now? And this just tells the story.
The construction of an iconic and monumental civil engineering project, the Lagos Calabar Coastal Superhighway. When completed, the 700-kilometer long coastal highway will enter the record books among iconic coastal routes like the Pacific Coastal Highway in the US and the Wide Atlantic Highway in Ireland. The first phase of 47.47 kilometer starts from Ahmadu Bello Way, Victoria Island in Lagos, and the coastal road will pass through the Lekki Deep Seaport, Ogun, Ondo, Delta, Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom, before culminating in Cross River. But that's not all. The superhighway, which is being built by a high-tech construction company, has 5 lanes on each side of the dual carriageway and a train track in the middle. And to avoid delays, the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, has been up and about ensuring compliance with contract.
Now, this has been the most controversial project in Nigeria in the recent time, and all of the demolitions that took place for this to happen, all of the jobs that were lost for this to happen. But to me, I think the the worst part of it, or the most dangerous part of it, is about how we brought back again issues and concerns about land use and property rights in Nigeria, and how this so-called project in the interest of benefit of the public, we saw what happened at Ukwaja, how they had to like really, literally protest for the government to take it back to the original alignment, how people's lands were taken, the compensation, was it enough? I have a video on that, how obviously governments world over, they will value it in a different way. They would value properties in a different way than obviously other valuers outside do so. But then again, in the wake of that, and how this messy acquisition process for this government project, it reminded me again of another African country, the last that we're going to be talking about today. Because if you actually sit down today and actually look at the parallels, we're just going to be noticing.
The unfortunate part about the land that's just sitting unused is that the land belonged to several hundred people who are still owed compensation from the Senegalese government. The first phase of Akon City was supposed to be built on 55 hectares of land secured by SAPCO in 2009, eventually expanding onto a further 500 hectares by the end of the decade. Macky Sall, the president of Senegal, said, "My problem concerning the land is not with Akon. My problem is concerning SAPCO, because it is them who took the land from the villagers." Originally, the Senegalese government's tourist board, SAPCO, was backing the project, saying, "We believe in Akon City and we are all supporting Akon so that Akon City will come to life. It will attract tourists and investors in the region, and SAPCO is fully committed to the success of this project." But most recently, they have sent Akon a formal notice that if the project has not advanced by next year, its contract with him will be terminated. And since Akon has massively overpromised and massively underdelivered, people are starting to question his intentions in the first place. "I plan to retire in that city city, he says confidently.
So this is Senegal, where Akon City, the so-called, again, this guy came promising heaven and earth. This guy came promising whatever for a city, very ambitious project, and the government bought into his vision, hook, line, and sinker. And also there were property rights concerning that sort of ambitious national scale project. And when we have projects or when government has projects like this, I mean, I know in the UK you have the Compulsory Purchase Act, and there are other acts that are laid on the ground. Why do we keep having issues where people always have to complain of taking their land, complain of inadequate compensation, complain of realignment of stuff? You know, I think that's something that needs to be gotten right as far as these things go, and just putting the similarities in place. But before I go, there's another similarity that it would be remiss of me not to mention from the Egypt case. Let's actually go there.
And other government buildings are also set to relocate. But employees don't expect to be able to afford apartments in the area, since the cost of an apartment starts at around $80,000. In 2020, the average household income in an urban community was just over $2,600.
It's clearly a city for the rich, simply by finances.
So for the project to be fully realized, it needs buy-in from more groups, including foreign embassies. The U.S. Embassy in Egypt did not respond to requests for comment, but several foreign diplomats have previously said their embassies would need to see that Egyptian government ministries locate there first.
I just wanted to end there, and the fact that most of these leaders, they will need buy-in from embassies for their projects. And Eko Atlantic got the biggest buy-in last year or last 2 years when the US Embassy agreed to build the largest consulate, costing over 500 million dollars in Eko Atlantic. So to me, I think many people say that African leaders don't really do things by the book. But to me, I feel like they have the same type of thinking, and maybe there's a book that they read because the actions are just the same and quite. I rest my case. Thank you very much for watching. This is interesting to me because this has all the trappings of land use, urban planning, real estate, law, finances, every single thing that I'm interested in. So if you'd like me to do more and more of this sort of videos, let me know. The African continent is our continent, and we should have the best of minds that are leading us, and also leaders should also be accountable. This is not like a family where you just have to praise and your king or whatever. Every part of the world where there's development, leaders are held to such a high level of accountability and scrutiny. So we need to look at, if you're saying this is I want to do this, you need to give us the rationale behind it. I need to have public buying before you're able to do these things. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. This is the Ownahome TV show. Kindly like, kindly share, kindly subscribe. Here, Ownahome, believe only in the home, only in the property should not make you lose sleep. We're committed to the very best property recommendations and insider real estate gist. See you at the very next video. Bye.